Well, the Fox Propaganda Network just got busted for selectively editing a controversial and potentially politically damaging portion of their recent interview with convicted felon Donald Trump, and we have to talk about it. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bell before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to look at here. This one's funny, and in a roundabout way, it's actually a follow-up to a couple of videos that we've done about this same interview. So this was convicted felon Donald Trump's conversation with the Fox and Friends B team, or the Weekend edition, right? It's the one in which he went viral for just lying to their faces and to the faces of their audience as they nodded happily along that I never called to lock Hillary Clinton up. I never did that. That was other people, not me. When in fact he did repeatedly. And then we did a video after that talking about one of the hosts, the guy on the far end there with the red tie, Will Cain, about his cope for being called out and fact-checked for his cowardice and Trump's lies. So this is the third video we're going to do, but actually it's about something completely different, okay? People noticed during the course of the conversation that there were jump cuts, which suggested that the conversation was edited. And it turns out it was, and we're going to talk about the segment in particular. But before we do, I want to give you the version of the segment that aired to the Fox Propaganda Network's audience. Pay attention.
Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah.
Would you,
I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
Attorney General.
Would you?
So you see that part at the end? One more time.
Yeah, I would.
Attorney General.
So when she asks about the Epstein files, Donald Trump says, yeah. And then it cuts to, I think it's Pete Hegseth. I think that's the guy's name, the yellow tie, asking about the Attorney General, right? But that was a clear jump cut, right? And people noticed, but what? Maybe there was just some mindless, meaningless filler. You know how Donald Trump rambles, right? Of course, if this were President Biden and there was such a jump cut, the Fox Propaganda Network would be all over it. But again, people noticed there's jump cut. Well, here is the actual unedited part in reference to the Epstein files. And I suppose before I play this for you, just remember, Jeffrey Epstein was, an imprisoned billionaire, right? And sex trafficker who, hanged himself under what seemed to be mysterious circumstances. There are a lot of conspiracy theories about it in federal prison. And he was a well-known associate of Donald Trump. And the Epstein files would refer to all the documents surrounding Epstein's associates and the shenanigans and illicit activities that they got into, potentially additional sex trafficking, which could implicate many powerful people, potentially including Donald Trump. But this is the full version of that particular tangent about the Epstein files.
Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah. I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would.
So a bunch of specific caveats there. Yeah, of course. Yep, Epstein files? Yeah, well, maybe not that stuff. Maybe there's a lot of fake and phony stuff with the Epstein stuff. I mean, there's no telling what people could say, about like certain Republican presidential candidates. It would be fake news, obviously. So there's a reason they cut that, right? Because it implicates an uncertainty and a hesitance in Donald Trump to expose these controversial files. And again, given Trump's close association with the subject of those files, the convicted sex trafficker who later hanged himself in prison, one might wonder perhaps Trump has a self-serving motive in keeping that information classified. So it's no wonder that Fox and Friends selectively edited that part out. It also reminded me of a recent congressional hearing. I say recent, it was from several months ago, but it was in the House Oversight Committee hearing in which they were trying to impeach President Biden. And freshman Democratic Congressman Jared Moskowitz made a point to rub in the faces of his bad faith Republican colleagues that despite their insinuations about Hunter Biden or President Biden Donald Trump actually had some genuinely shady connections, and he made a point to really rub it in their faces that he was a close associate of the late Jeffrey Epstein.
And so, again, because the gentle lady from Georgia, I know is such an advocate for women's rights, as she mentioned, and is so concerned about grooming, and apparently we don't have any standards here anymore. Again, I just want to remind my colleagues, because, you know, I don't want them to forget about hypocrisy, okay? I don't want them to forget about hypocrisy. But, you know, Donald Trump was asked about Jeffrey Epstein, and when he was asked, he said, you know, Jeffrey likes him young. Well, how did the president know that? How did he know that Jeffrey Epstein likes him young? Perhaps some people are saying he was there, since you're so concerned, right? But again, I bring this up not to make jest. I bring it
Point
up,
of order, Mr. Chairman.
I bring it up.
Okay.
I thought we weren't going to interrupt.
We're going to stop the clock. We did this with Ms.
Okay.
Green. State your point.
Yeah, I'm just curious about the impugning of the former president's character. That we
I don't have to do that. He does that himself.
Have we basically thrown that rule out? I'm just curious.
So now you have Republicans, MAGA snowflakes, just absolutely triggered by the fact that Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were friends and associates. That's Donald Trump's fault. And imagine, you know, again, if you feel so inclined to be sympathetic to Republicans, you shouldn't be. But let's say that you are. I want you to imagine an alternate universe in which President Biden and not Donald Trump had been a close friend and associate of Jeffrey Epstein. How would Republicans react to that, and what would they do with that information? They would absolutely cynically employ it to the best of their ability. And so I see no reason for us to not do that, because if the shoe was on the other foot, they do it to us, and we're not obligated to play by moral double standards. I also want to play this segment from News Nation, in which, again, they just to really seal the deal, that Donald Trump's association with Epstein and his travels with Epstein are simply a matter of fact.
And I quote him, "This is what the Democrats do to their Republican opponent, who is leading them by a lot in the polls. This is AI, and it is very dangerous for our country. Also, I was never on Epstein's plane or at his stupid island. Strong laws ought to be developed against AI. It will be a big and very dangerous problem in the future," end quote. Here is the problem I have with this, not the AI part, that was awful. I have a problem with what he said, because only part of his denial may be true. There is no record of Donald Trump ever visiting Jeffrey Epstein's Caribbean island, Little St. James. That is clear. But there is plenty of hard evidence that he rode on Epstein's plane, and not just one time, 7 times, at least 7 times. And we know that because his name appears in flight logs that are submitted to the FAA.
So there you have it. Again, I don't know why Donald Trump would be so quick to say JFK files declassify, these files declassify, these files declassify. Epstein, yeah, well, wait a minute. It's a lot of conspiracy theories and fake news and stuff like that. But so funny that the Fox Propaganda Network got busted for selectively editing this. And again, imagine an alternate timeline in the multiverse, which you replaced convicted felon Donald Trump with sitting President Joe Biden. You replace the Fox Propaganda Network with MSNBC, and then you keep all the other facts the same. What would Fox News be doing in that timeline? This would be nonstop coverage. They'd be like, why would this person be so hesitant to declassify the files? And why would this particular news network bend over backwards to selectively edit this stuff? And so again, I think what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I hope CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, AP, Reuters, and you know, those of us in liberal and leftist media make a point to draw attention to this, just to make sure everybody understands we're playing on the same terrain. And if we're going to talk about shady connections and shady associations, as Republicans are wont to do, it seems important to acknowledge the elephant in the room, and that elephant, of course, being convicted felon Donald Trump. Let me know what you think in the comments.